Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of 360 Thought Leadership Consulting, and I will be your moderator for our FP&A Trends webinar today. Thank you for everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, Artificial Intelligence for the 21st Century FP&A. When I say global webinar, I mean global. We have registrants from 55 countries, and our speakers today are coming to you from across the globe, from the US to Denmark to Germany to Singapore. Today, our featured speakers will share some views on modern finance, how AI and machine learning can help in decision making, and how it can impact the strategic value of FP&A. Topics to be covered include key topics in the vision of artificial intelligence and machine learning for FP&A, a case study from a leading global company on the forefront of leveraging AI and ML in FP&A, and how artificial intelligence will impact the role of FP&A. I would like to thank our webinar sponsor today, Unit 4, whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible. Unit 4 is a pure-play software and SaaS vendor offering enterprise solutions with significant scale advantages. One of their leading global offerings is Prevero, a leading CPM and FP&A product. Now let's have a few words about the FP&A Trends Group. Absolutely a global thought leader in all things FP&A. Some of the big products is the International FP&A Board, which is active in 21 cities, 14 countries, and 4 continents. Truly an amazing growing organization that absolutely supports the FP&A profession, excellence across the board, have some outstanding FP&A education, online resources, global workshops. So I encourage everyone to go to the FP&A Trends website and also to go to the FP&A Trends LinkedIn group. Just some fantastic information there. A few housekeeping items. We will send you links via email to the presentation and recording over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'd love to hear from you, so please ask your questions at any time in the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel for the Q&A session. We have a world-class lineup of speakers today, and I would love for you to take advantage of the opportunity to tap into their tremendous knowledge. Finally, we appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. So just some brief overview on our agenda. First, we'll start things off with Larysa Melnychuk. She's the founder of the International FP&A Boards and the CEO of FP&A Trends. She'll offer us some key insights from the Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning FP&A Committee, and then we'll transition, and Larysa will have an interactive conversation with Matthias Thurner, Chief Technology Officer at Unit 4 Prevero. And then we will have an amazing case study from Asif Khan, the Global FP&A Lead at PayU. And then we'll wrap things up with some conclusions and recommendations and some Q&A time permitting. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce our speakers for our webinar today. Matthias Thurner joined Unit 4 in August 2016 with Prevero. At Unit 4, he is the CTO of the Center of Excellence for Performance Management, responsible for product strategy, product management, and R&D. He co-founded Prevero and played a major role in growing it to a leading vendor of performance management solutions. His passion is to build software that is great to use and that offers maximum value. Asif Khan is originally from India and now works in the Netherlands as a global FP&A lead at PayU, a financial technology company operating across EMEA, LATAM, and India. He partners with regional teams to forecast, analyze trends, create metrics, and perform analysis to support strategic decisions. Previously, he has worked in banking, investment management, and a quantitative hedge fund. He has worked and studied in 6 countries: India, Bahrain, Japan, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. He holds a master's degree in France from HEC Paris, France, and a bachelor's degree in engineering from IIT Kanpur, India. Larysa Melnychuk is the founder and managing director of FP&A Trends. FP&A Trends help companies realize their innovative FP&A potential through training, consulting, professionals, networking, and debating. She is an experienced FP&A practitioner and has held senior FP&A positions at Embasys, Ace Group, KeyBank, and HSBC Bank before setting up and running the International FP&A Board in 2013, a global and well-recognized FP&A best practices think tank. Larysa has been driving the board expansion into 11 countries. I think that's now 14 countries in Europe, the Middle East, the USA, and Africa. Larysa, the floor is yours. Please take it away.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, everyone. This is our last webinar for the year, and this is a pleasure to greet you here for such an interesting subject, artificial intelligence and machine learning for FP&A. Annie, thank you so much for your great introduction. I will start with a few updates about the project, why we started Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning FP&A Committee. You know, with International FP&A Board, I traveled the world, and only two and a half years ago, actually, not so many companies can share the experience of artificial intelligence, machine learning for particular in FP&A. But then a couple of years ago, we started to see that the cases, pilot projects, they started to be developed in the companies. And this is the reason why we created committee, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Committee, specifically for FP&A, to look at the case studies, to look at the vision. We created this committee quite recently. It was in March this year. Last week we had our third meeting. We're looking at case studies. We're looking at the visionary thoughts about how artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to change FP&A. So the mission of the committee, this is to look at the development, application, and promotion of the best practices of those techniques only in FP&A, only in strategic finance, only in forward-looking finance. Can we look at the next slide, please? So the vision for artificial intelligence and machine learning, obviously, that it will help us with algorithmic future for finance. There will be zero-based budgeting developments, and we already see that some of the companies realize potential for better driver-based planning. There will be better practices in rolling forecast, and so on and so far. If we go to the next slide. One of the biggest challenges at the moment in the FP&A world is how to recognize potential of driver-based planning in FP&A, how to recognize potential of incredible amount of data, both internal and external. And actually, artificial intelligence and machine learning can help us to do this. I'm just sharing here a high-level 5-step approach to bring big data or lakes of data to FP&A. Obviously, it can help us to realize internal and external drivers through machine learning techniques. The key drivers will be realized through driver-based model that is implemented through the system. And the biggest question will be answered, how to do scenario planning and decision-making very, very quickly. So today we have two interesting presentations, two interesting case studies. The first one, it's a visionary one. So it will be from Matthias Thurner, Chief Technology Officer at Unit for Prevero. It will be about the vision and how the potential of machine learning and artificial intelligence has been realized in the company, in this company. And the second presentation, it will be a particular case study, very quick case study, the case study that was realized in only 3 months. So in 3 months, we already see interesting potential. So we will start from first presentation, how artificial intelligence will impact the role of the FP&A. And we have Matthias Thurner, Chief Technology Officer at Unit for Prevero. We will do this presentation as Q&A, as interview, if you don't mind. Matthias, you're known as a visionary.
I'm happy with that. That's perfect.
Fantastic. Matthias, welcome to the show. Welcome to the webinar. You're well known as a visionary in this area. You've been doing and thinking about this for some time, and you already started to realize some projects in your company for artificial intelligence and machine learning. When we met in London recently, I think it was in September this year, you said that actually with the latest advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, the way how we do FP&A, the way how we plan and forecast, it's really going to change. It's going to change forever. But this is the new term for many people. So please, can you kindly remind us the definition and the key concepts of artificial intelligence and in particular machine learning?
Of course. Well, so thanks very much for having me. Yeah, artificial intelligence actually is all about machines behaving like human beings. So that's the basic idea. And it has become such a big topic in the last, let's say, 2 years, mainly because the computing power has been increasing so significantly over the last decade that it became possible to make use of artificial intelligence in everyday products and in everyday life. And the core of it all is machine learning. So machine learning is the basis for a lot of robotics applications. It's the basis for language processing, for image recognition, for credit checks, actually for a number of systems that probably all of us are using in everyday life. The topic itself is relatively old, so it's been around since about 50 years, and I can still remember when I was fascinated by it, dealing with it in the first time in the 90s. But at that time, the computing power was not available. And so in these 50 years that it's there have been more than 14 different approaches being developed by the community, by the science community. There are more than 10 different frameworks, software frameworks that are heavily used by the community, and there are more than 50 algorithms. You can see some of the approaches on the right-hand side of the slide. The most interesting one from my perspective is deep learning, because it's a very promising one. When we go to the next slide, we can also see what the situation is in the office of the CFO, and I think that's relating to the next question, Larysa.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges and worries in our profession at the moment, what is going to happen with all these advancements in technology? Are we going to have our job tomorrow? Is it going to be really up to machines to do our job? You know, how the role of CFO and FP&A is going to be influenced and already influenced by those technologies, Matthias?
Yeah, I think there will be a big influence. And if you look at the situation that you find today in many offices of the CFO or FP&A departments, there is a number of things. So the first one is that our customers keep telling us that there is a higher number and increasing frequency of requests that the FP&A departments have to deal with. Second, the data volumes are becoming bigger and bigger. So you have big data pools externally that you can use, and you can have also bigger and bigger data pools internally that you can source. The questions also tend to become more complex. So there are still a lot of simpler questions, but there are also increasingly complex questions and also new complex requirements that you're facing. Let's take IFRS 16, for example. Nevertheless, what everybody expects from you is that you respond very fast. So personally, when I look back 3 years, it was perfectly okay to answer an email on the next day. If you look at it today, some people start chasing you if you do not answer within a few hours. So that's definitely changed. And of course, all of this, so answering more questions which are more complex, where you need more data in order to do it in a faster time, you should do with exactly the same set of resources, or maybe even less resources than in the past. And if you put this together, I think that's a really tough job. And it's only possible to really cope with it if you have powerful corporate performance management software features in place. And this includes classic software features, like you all know, analytics features, reporting features, and so on, but also AI-based features. And let's have a look at the next slide, because it shows very well what AI can do for you and what the impact of AI on the FP&A department or the office of the CFO will be. So AI can do a number of things for you. In the first place, it can do some work for you. So it can give you time and space by taking over some of your tasks. Then it can also do quality checks for you. And it can give you high quality input for certain topics, maybe even higher quality than you would be able to achieve by yourself. And if you put these three together, then the result is that you can, by the help of AI, do more. You will also have more time for human tasks, for tasks that only you as a human being can do and that are typically high value adding. And you will also produce results of a higher quality. So I do not believe that artificial intelligence will really change the basic role of the CFO or of an FP&A department. The role will stay the same. So you will stay the business partner for your companies. But I think that AI will become a game changer in terms of speed and quality. And if you want to remain competitive as a company and also competitive as an FP&A department, you will have to use it.
Thank you, Matthias. Definitely, artificial intelligence and human intelligence are going to work together. And probably this is the timing when all these non-value adding tasks that are so boring and that are resulting in losing the best talent in FP&A, actually we will have machines to help us with those automatic tasks, and it will increase the potential of human intelligence in FP&A. Obviously, there are a lot of developments at the moment happening in this field. I remember only 2 years ago at one of the conferences in London, a representative of a big organization was talking about operational usage of artificial intelligence, voice recognition, word recognition, automation, and so on and so forth. But when I asked the question, what is happening in FP&A? So what do they use for FP&A at the moment? He just answered Excel. But the reality is that it's already started to happen in more and more companies, and I definitely see those case studies around the globe. So please, would you like to share your experience of what is happening in this field, in particular in your company, Matthias?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really exciting topic because there's so interesting use cases. So the four most interesting ones that we see at the moment are the digital assistant, then the topic of automated analytics, the topic of automated data entry checks, and the topic of automated forecasts. And let's have a look at the digital assistant topic first. Probably you all work, or at least you all know Cortana, Siri, Alexa, and so on. Well, there is also a digital assistant that has been introduced by Unit 4. The name of it is Wanda. And Wanda will be an example of how you can communicate with your FP&A system, not only via a visual user interface, but also via natural speech. And a little dialogue is shown here. So let's say we just want to know what the turnover last month has been, and we ask Wanda for giving us information, and Wanda would answer, well, the turnover last month was 56 million, and this was 10% under budget. Wow, we would say that's not really good. So that's actually a topic where I would like to dig a little bit deeper. So Wanda, could you please send me a report showing the turnover and the delta between budget and actual per region? And Wanda would say, yes, it's already on its way. And I would maybe also add, please send it to Mike and Tom, two colleagues of mine, who will also be really interested in that. This is just one of many possible dialogues. So it would also be possible to dig in deeper together with Wanda and say, well, Wanda, let's have a look at the different regions together, and let's see if there is a specific region causing this problem. I think it's a very good example showing you how AI can save you time, because a lot of these simpler questions that we have just been talking about before, when we looked at the state of the office of the CFO, can be answered by a digital assistant in the future. So the time that you would need to answer these questions will be taken away from you, and you will get time instead that you can focus on other tasks. So it will be a big time saver. And actually, there are also situations where even users who are used to use the visual interface might prefer to use the digital assistant, for example, when you're sitting in a car. The next use case is about automated analytics. I guess you're all familiar with the concept of exception reporting. So what you can see here is a map which shows a typical exception report telling you that something's wrong here in the UK. In this example, it's a not-for-profit organization, and the red color tells us that the funds raised have been way below what we have been expecting to raise. Now, by using classic functionality in your FP&A system, now you would start to do a manual analysis, drill down, slice and dice a little bit in order to find out where this delta really comes from. The idea about automated analytics is that the system already gives you this information. So the system already performs the analysis for you and gives you the result. In this case, the system will tell you, well, there is a problem in the UK, and 80% of the deviation was caused by government donations in the Plan to Treat campaign. And well, of course, there are still steps in the process where the human part is involved, and that would be the next step where you might ask Jeff, your colleague who is responsible for government donations, and ask him what happened. And maybe he would come back and say, well, don't worry, no problem. They just had a problem with the IT systems on the government side, so we didn't get notice, and we also didn't get the funds, but we will get them next week and everything's fine. When you think about the value that something like this can give you, I think a good way to do it is just think about what it would be like having an additional team of, let's say, 5 people doing nothing else than analyzing deltas in your data all day. And I would be pretty sure that they would come up with really interesting insights. Now you can afford this because you don't have to hire an additional team, but you can use virtual colleagues here in order to do the analysis and to come up with the insights that will be of value for your business. The next use case is about a topic that we all know. It's actually budgeting, and I never met anybody who really likes budgeting. Actually, I don't like to do it myself either. I know it makes sense, it's reasonable, and it's important for deciding on how we want to invest our resources in the next year, but it's not really fun to do it. And well, if you have to do something which you don't really like to do, what are you doing? Well, you're doing it as fast as possible. And that's what happens if you have a decentralized budgeting process. And if you do things as fast as possible, you make mistakes. So maybe you enter the right number, but in the wrong row, or you mistype and you have 1 0 too many or 1 0 too less. The result might be a mistake which will really impact the quality of the budget at the end. And of course, you can use classic functionality to try to do checksums and, for example, to say if anybody enters a value that is more than 20% above the last year's value, then some alert should pop up. That's possible. But you would have to do all this manually, and you would also not cover all the cases, because a value which is 20% more than the year before might be absolutely okay, depending on the context. So what AI can do for you here is that for every value entered, and that's what you see in this example, it would give you immediate feedback without having to define any rules or whatsoever about the entered value. And in this case, the system would say, hey, this value seems to be too high regarding the historical and the context data. So please check if there is a mistake or not. I think if you use functionality like this. This will definitely help you to improve the quality of your budget and also the quality of decisions. And last but not least, we also have artificial intelligence as a basis for forecasting. And that's relating very well to the user story or reference story that we will have in the second presentation. Automated forecasts based on AI can take away the hassle from you to use, for example, statistical functions. So today, a lot of forecasts are done manually or using statistical functions. And the problem with statistical functions is that you really have to know which function to use. And also you have to know how to parameterize it. And that's not so easy if you're not a statistics expert. And I think most of you aren't. So what we did is we use machine learning, especially deep learning, for creating automated forecasts. And we were really surprised by the quality of the results ourselves. So of course we were hoping that this would be something that would work. But if you look at this little example that you can see here on the screen, with a very limited number of historical data, the deep learning already gives us a very reasonable forecast. So the blue line are the actuals, and the dotted orange line are the forecasted values. And you can see very well that the deep learning picked up the monthly pattern that you can see here. It also recognized that the peaks between the spaces between the peaks are decreasing, and it also analyzed that there is an overall decreasing way of trend that you can see there. To produce this result with statistical functions is really difficult. With deep learning, it's quite simple because the only thing you have to do is to press a button. And actually what we did is we already tried out a lot of different use cases and historical time series, and the results that we got were typically significantly better than the results that you would get by using statistical features. Well, the cool thing is that the stuff that I've been talking about, these use cases, are not only ideas or visions. A part of this already is true. So we just released this AI-based forecasting in July of this year, and also a first version of the data entry checks. So it's stuff that you can really use and that can help you to produce better quality of data, and at the end, as I already said, better decisions. And if we look at this automated forecasting, the input that the AI system can give you here is definitely an input which is of better quality. So it definitely gives you a better overall forecast result if you add your own information and flavor to it at the end.
Matthias, thank you for sharing your experience with us. It's amazing to see that it's been used already for different cases, from operational FP&A to more strategic FP&A. The cases that I see around the globe, they actually around automated forecasting. For example, last week at Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Committee, we looked at the Microsoft case. Amazing results. Everybody actually saying that the quality is increasing. But the biggest question is, if machine is producing this forecast for you, how human beings, how CFOs and finance directors and directors of business units can trust this forecast, how they can own this forecast, which is produced not by a human intelligence, but by artificial intelligence. So this is one of the biggest problems at the moment. So how would you answer this question?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Larysa. I think it's possible. So I think you can own a forecast which has been produced with AI input. And there are three reasons for that. So the first one is that even if you use deep learning for forecasting, deep learning cannot give you a real explanation what exactly the reasoning was behind the forecast. But what it can give you is it can show you an impact map where you can see which drivers, which factors had a huge or significant negative or positive impact. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you would try out AI-based forecasting over time iteratively. And if you have seen 4 times or 5 times in a row that the result that is produced by it is a really good one, then you would start to gain trust in it. And last but not least, the AI-based forecasting is not meant to be something prescriptive. So it's meant to be a high-value input that you can still change. And there might be some qualitative information which is not part of the forecasting model that you might have as a human being that you can, of course, add and still change the suggestion that AI has been giving you. And if you put this together, I think it's possible very well to own a forecast, even if it has been produced at the beginning with some AI input.
Excellent. So this is the suggestion, not the prescription. In reality, people still can own this. But another direction that we observe in artificial intelligence machine learning for FP&A at the moment, this is the help to identify these key drivers, those 20% of drivers that can describe up to 80% of our results, those drivers that can be the basis for our driver-based model. So my question is how we can use artificial intelligence, in particular machine learning, in order to identify those most sensitive drivers, Matthias. So would you like to share this information with us if you started to do this?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's relatively easy to find out if some information or something is a driver or not, because you can pick a potential driver, you can apply the data relating to it to your AI model, and then the model will give you information about the forecast quality resulting of it. So if the forecast quality significantly increases by this added data, then you have found a driver. And if it doesn't, you haven't. And so that's the first step where AI can already help you to identify if there is a driver or not. And the whole process of trying out different potential drivers can also be automated. So that's the 2 ways in AI that AI can help you to find out what a proper driver-based model for your business might be.
Thank you, Matthias. And the final question to you. We're all almost at the end of year 2018. And this is the time for us to talk about the trends and what the next year or the next couple of years are going to bring us. So in your view, what are the top trends in the area of artificial intelligence for FP&A we should observe in the upcoming years or in the year 2019? What is your view on this?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I see is that there is a lot of production use already going on of Generation 1 applications. And with Generation 1 applications, I mean applications which are using one component of artificial intelligence. So an example would be this deep learning-based forecasting. Or an example is also the image recognition that you can use on the new iPhone, which recognizes your face and then gives you access to the system. There is already some tryout about Generation 2 applications. Generation 2 applications are actually combining more than one component of artificial intelligence. Actually, the slide that we have been seeing before is a good example for it, because we have been seeing that AI can help you to check if a driver is existing or if something is a driver. So that would be one component of AI. And the second component would be to do this automated process, walking through different potential drivers and trying them out. So it would be a meta layer. And this is coming up at the moment for many use cases. So that's the Generation 2. There's a lot of tryout. I think there are not too many productive yet. And well, in the medium term, I think there will be a lot of interesting things coming up where, to be honest, it's really difficult to really look into the future and to give any prognosis in an exact timeline. But I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of interesting and fascinating additional value that we can create by using artificial intelligence, also in FP&A in the future. And I also know that there is fear by a number of people because they might think that AI is taking work away from them in a negative sense. which I don't believe, because I think AI is not taking away our jobs. It just enables us to do our jobs in a better way. So it gives us more time for the high value add human tasks that we can focus on, and it takes away the repetitive stuff from us. So that's my thinking about the future of AI usage.
Matthias, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. This is a great time for a polling question now, just to see what is the profile of our audience. Ernie, would you like to introduce people to this quick poll?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Larysa and Matthias, for that fascinating content. Our first polling question is asking you to share with us which of the AI-based use cases seems to be most valuable for you. We appreciate everyone's consideration in answering our polling question today, all of them. We are going to go ahead and leave that polling question up for another 20 seconds or so, and then we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the results, and then we'll ask Matthias if he has any thoughts on it. This is what he expected from the results. And also want to remind you that we can take your questions at any time in the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel. Note if we don't get to your questions during the webinar, we will follow up with you directly to address your questions. So let's go ahead and close our poll. I'll give folks another 3 or 4 seconds, and then we'll take a quick peek. So let's go ahead and close that poll. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the results. So it looks like we have 42% automated analytics, 34% automated forecasting, 17% automated data entry checks, and then 8% digital assistant. So we have 42% automated analytics, 34% automated forecasting. Matthias, is this about what you expected? Any surprises here at all?
No, actually, to be honest, it's what I expected. So I think also that the automated analytics part and the automated forecasting are the most valuable ones.
Okay, let me ask you this question. So to me, it seems like these use cases help define the business case for investing in AI. So would you say that analytics and forecasting are probably going to be the keys to the value proposition of people for adopting AI?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely agree.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit. I will hand the floor back over to Larysa, who will welcome our next speaker to the webinar. Larysa?
Very interesting results from the polling question. Thank you for voting. And now this is a good timing for the next presentation and for the case study from PayU company. And I would like to introduce to everyone Asif Khan, who is a global FP&A lead at PayU. First of all, and my first question to you, Asif, we are seeing this new breed of finance professionals or FP&A professionals, those people that are both finance and they also have a unique technical skills as well. So, and I think this is exactly what happening in your organization. This is exactly your profile, Asif. So would you like to introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about your skills and experience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Larysa. You're very right. So I don't have a particularly traditional background for an FP&A professional. I do not have any accounting degree. Basically, I completed my bachelor's in technology. While I was doing my bachelor's, I got really interested in the field of finance, and that's why I shifted gears, started working in finance, and completed my master's degree later in finance. So at PayU, this is my true first operational finance role. In my prior positions, I was more working on investment banking, investment management, quantitative hedge fund, and also a technology venture capital to invest in technology companies. So from my side, I have always been interested in understanding the ways technology disrupts industries. And this is probably evident from my reading pattern, which you can see on the slide. I'm really excited by the combination of tech and finance, and I'm grateful to be able to combine both in the current project we are going to discuss today.
Thank you, Asif. And this is exactly what we observe around the globe, that those predictive analytics or artificial intelligence projects, they are led by those people with both data science background and finance background. So finally, data scientists and finance people started to work together. So before we look at your case study, which is very interesting, very unique, I would say, because you managed to introduce this in only 3 months. In the first 3 months, you already had some incredible results.
Yes.
Please, would you like to give a quick background of your organization and how you did your forecasting before you introduced machine learning to forecasting?
Yes, sure. So I'm working with PayU, which is a financial technology business, which is operating in 18 high growth countries across EMEA, LATAM, and India. We generate close to 300 million revenue last year. In a way, we are small or medium-sized business, but fast-growing. We have also started with consumer credit products and invested in other financial technology companies. So PayU itself is a part of Naspers Group, which is one of the largest tech investors globally. So you might have heard Naspers investments in Tencent, in Flipkart, in Udemy, Delivery Hero, others. So that's just quick background about my company. And what I will talk is next, how we were doing forecasting before we started with machine learning. The regions and countries which you see, so these 18 countries, 3 regions, they were doing bottom-up forecasting exercises. What it means, they were discussing with the commercial teams, doing pipeline analysis, and then performing some seasonality sense checks. Now, this process had several pitfalls and low level of accuracy, which forced us to look at other tools for forecasting.
Yes, interesting. But what was the reason actually that you started to implement this project? We already can see these pain points. Would you like us? Would you like to share those pain points with us?
Yes. So I think it's what a pain point which we saw from the bottom-up process was that one, we are in a fast, rapidly growing industry itself. Some of the countries are going 40-50% in terms of payment growth. So this fast growth itself presents difficulties in forecasting. And sometimes what we saw that bottom-up forecasting was even off by 5% versus actual. So there was a lot of low confidence in the bottom-up forecasting being done. Second pain point which we saw is that the industry itself, or the fintech industry in general, is relatively new, and the drivers are not always clear. So not having clarity on drivers was a pain point for us. Third is also man hours spent on forecasting. So the bottom-up forecasting process from start to finish across all 18 countries might take around a week. And finally, what we saw is also biases. So as humans, we are still very much prone to biases, and those biases feed into the forecasting process. For example, a commercial team member might be too aggressive or pessimistic on the growth expectation. These pain points meant suboptimal forecasts, which resulted in difficulty in decision making. So we started looking for other tools which could help us improve the accuracy. And that's how we decided to test the machine learning based models also.
Actually, very typical pain points for any of the company. So interesting to see at the next polling question in order to understand what is the profile of our group. We really would like to understand when do you expect to start machine learning based forecasting project? Ernie?
Thank you very much, Larysa. As you see, I've gone ahead and launched our next polling question, asking you to share with us when you expect to start a machine learning-based forecasting project. No plans at this time, within 6 months, within 6 to 12 months, or more than a year. Hopefully, after the webinar is over, we will inspire you to take a look at this, especially if you have no plans at this time. So I just want to remind you that we can still take your questions in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. We appreciate everyone's time in answering our polling question. In order to be mindful of that time, we're going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for another few seconds, and then I'll ask Larysa to comment on the polling question and share her experience in going across the globe and see if this aligns with what she's hearing from across several countries across the globe. So let's go ahead and close that, and let's go ahead and share the results. Larysa, what do you think? Is this what you see, or more or less? What are your thoughts here?
I would say that approximately 99% of the companies didn't have any plans 2 years ago, but now situation is changing, and we can see this from this quick poll. Yeah, so some companies are thinking about this in more than 1 year. Some companies are planning to do this in the next 6 months. I would say that if we ask people in 6 months, the results would be absolutely different. So what I see at the moment in Asia, at least for my FP&A board members, 20% of those, they already started to implement the projects. In America, in Silicon Valley, from 8 to 12%. In the UK, in Europe, it's around 5 to 7% of our FP&A board members already started to implement or to think about this. So no surprises here. Thank you so much for voting. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. Now, I would like to ask the favorite question, you know, and Asif, when we met 3 years ago in Amsterdam at FP&A Board, we had this quick discussion, and I was really amazed by your project. So the project that you managed to implement in only 3 months, you know, so the first prototype was ready in 3 months, but also it's not only revenue forecasting. Actually, this is the forecasting of several lines of profit and loss account, but also you managed to implement this dream of many FP&A professionals. So how we can use artificial intelligence and machine learning for driver-based planning, how we can identify the drivers. So please, would you like to share with us your idea how you do this?
Yes, of course. I think Matthias, in his really fascinating presentation already touched on the driver-based model. And I think we were also quite similar in that sense. Having driver-based model is especially helpful in our case, because in a relatively new industry, we are still experimental with the drivers of our business. So when we were doing bottom-up forecasting, there was a lot of focus on internal drivers, but very less on external ones. So when we started with the machine learning forecasting, we decided to include internal as well as external drivers. Few of them are industry growth rates, GDP of countries, inflation, unique seasonality, and others. So using machine learning models allowed us to experiment with many external drivers fairly quickly. We evaluated the predictive power of these drivers. The ones which had substantial impact on the forecast, we included those in the final model. I will just give you an example to make it more clear. We provide payment services to e-commerce businesses. And intuitively, it may seem that consumers would like to shop more on weekends when they have more time. And so higher number of weekend days in a particular month should impact revenue positively. However, when we tried to test this hypothesis with machine learning algorithms, the result was totally opposite in few markets. So we realized that in some markets, consumers shopped more on weekdays. So more number of weekdays in a month imply higher revenue. So to summarize, using machine learning algorithms enabled us to, 1, test the number of drivers relatively quickly, and 2, it also helped in the process of driver discovery or finding new drivers which we were unaware of.
Interesting, but now more technical question. FP&A architecture. This is such a great subject at the moment. So what was the architecture of this project? Please, can you share this with us, Asif?
Yes. So I think it's fair to say that we took a more agile approach to machine learning model implementation in our company. So as a first step, we did not go all in on machine learning with significant resources. Our idea was to come up with a prototype and test if there is some merit in actually using machine learning models or not. So the criteria of success of prototype was very simple. Can the prototype models forecast better than the bottoms-up process? Secondly, to come to prototype, we formed a small team. So I have engineering background and one person who reports to me, she also has engineering background. Furthermore, we sought help from tech team members on part-time basis. I also agreed to assist in any external training if and as needed. And that's how we got to start as a team on the project. Next step, which was crucial, was data preparation. So we had data sitting in multiple locations and silos. So connecting all the data sources, cleaning it, removing the outliers, and then making a usable data repository was a crucial step. And finally, we managed to start implementing machine learning algorithms on the data set. We divided the data set into two sets, basically training data and test data, something I think you can see on the slides right now. And the idea is that, let's say if you have 1,000 days of data, you can use 900 days to train the models, machine learning models, and the remaining 100 days to actually test the models. So the models which fitted best on training data and test data, we use them, and our confidence in the predictability of these models was fairly high. All these steps took 3 months for us to have a final prototype version of machine learning models. And this time frame, I would say that it was 3 months for us, but it will really depend on the complexity of each individual company, and hence for large companies might take many more months. So these models helped us to forecast revenue and gross margin. The costs were more straightforward. The costs were more straightforward because being a medium-sized company, those are controlled very tightly. So forecasting the revenue, forecasting the gross margin, knowing the cost, we were able to get down to EBITDA level forecast. This is still a prototype and work is not yet finished. Machine learning models are data hungry. So we have continued to enrich our models and still testing them to get better accuracy.
Very interesting to see the results. So can you share with us what was before and what you have after as the result of this quick project that you introduced?
Yes. I think after completing our prototype in 3 months, right, we have continued to make the models more robust. We have seen several successes over time. First is that machine learning based forecasting has showed potential to reduce reliance on bottom-up forecasting. And now we are working towards shifting to more centralized approach where regions are also providing input, but the forecast is more on a centralized basis. This has helped us to improve the speed of forecasting. So bottom-up forecasting, which took us almost a week, now we are able to do forecast in just a day with machine learning. Another major advancement is that we are able to take into account more number of drivers, just both internal as well as external. This improves the understanding of business and also sometimes helps give early warning signs. What is also, we have been seeing significant improvements in accuracy of forecast. So the variance before, with the earlier process with bottom-up forecast, the variance might have been 5%. Now we are down to less than 2% with machine learning forecast. And please remember that our high growth rates in some of the markets, 2% variance might seem high, but depending on, since we are growing much faster, we are kind of quite comfortable with it. We are still continuing to work to try to further reduce the variance. And another area which we have not yet explored, but soon will, is incorporating the machine learning forecast into the budget process. So currently in my company, the budget process takes about 3 months to complete. My thinking is that for products and countries where we have significant data, we can potentially rely on machine learning models for budgeting. So the budget conversation totally shifts to strategy, to new products and new developments, which company wants to initiate. This can potentially shorten the budget timelines.
Asif,
Yeah.
the results are absolutely incredible. And the question is, what are the lessons that you would like to share with people?
Yeah, I think the first recommendation would be to not jump at extensive investments in machine learning, but to take more measured steps. So first step is to try achieve a good working prototype and then try to scale. This minimizes initial investment and also provides important initial learnings. Another thing is to look at the talent gap and partner as needed. The partnering can be with internal tech teams or with also external providers. Also, the commitment is important. The way we approached that was machine learning project implementation is one of my annual objective for appraisal, right? And that's how it goes with the people who report to me. So it did not matter whether the project failed or succeed, as long as it is implemented. This allowed me and my team a room for experimentation. Again, going forward is that since machine learning algos are new subject for FP&A teams, so self-learning would be needed. There are several good courses online which we can make use of. Also, just sharing your own learnings, right? Forecasting is just a start. When you start to share your learnings within the organization, you might seek out more avenues to harness the power of machine learning within your own company. And I think the final one is recommendation I would say is really machine learning is additional tool in arsenal of FP&A teams. So it is not only for large tech companies, but I believe we can all in our finance team can benefit from this technology. So the recommendation is really to start now.
Asif, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Obviously, it's not enough time to have only 20 minutes to talk about such a complex project. Because of the timing, I suggest that we skip the next polling question and straight away we go to Q&A. Ernie, do we have time for Q&A? For a couple of questions?
Yes, I appreciate everyone staying online. I think it'll be valuable. I'd like to ask just one question, I think, which is really important. It is a key theme of the majority of the questions that we've gotten. It is around building consensus and being able to work across departments and really just, folks maybe outside of finance. So Asif, how were you able to get this project going in such a short time? How did you build that consensus internally?
I think the good thing about this project initially, at least for the prototype phase, was that we didn't need too many resources. So having some engineering skills together with you would be helpful to just go. You already have the data, and then you can actually start on the forecasting side at least. The second step is a bit more crucial. I think Matthias also touched upon it in his presentation earlier, that how do you partner once you have machine learning and forecasting probably better than the bottom-up forecasting, how do you actually work with the regional teams to basically integrate this whole within the company? And that requires more of a cultural shift. For example, the commercial team person should be able to trust what the machine learning algorithms is saying that next quarter forecast would be. And that trust would take time. What we will do is basically sit down the commercial person regularly and then show them how we are forecasting, what we are forecasting, the impact of different drivers. And then I think within next 6 months, once the trust is there, then slowly and slowly we can move towards the centralized approach I was talking about. So I think it's long process. The first process on credit to prototype might be quicker, but implementing it within the company, that is also the next challenge for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Larysa, can I get you to weigh in here? A similar question. From what you're seeing across the globe, what are you seeing as the kind of the inherent barriers to AI and machine learning projects? Can you share real quickly with us a couple tactics that folks are using, some of the issues, and then some of the ways people are overcoming some of the issues around just that word itself?
Actually, I would like to share the issues. If we can go to the next slide. The slide is the conclusion for our today's webinar.
Okay.
And it summarizes the key challenges and the top 7 trends. This is the summary from our International FP&A Board around the globe. So to answer this question, the biggest challenge is traditional budgeting culture. So the company should be ready for analytical culture. The second very big challenge is data quality. Then outdated inflexible planning technologies, so this is another one. Lack of investments in systems, lack of investments in people as well, because we need a new generation of people, not the classical accountants. FP&A talent is very difficult to find, and now it's not only FP&A, it's data science, it's data management. We see more and more companies start to employ data scientists for FP&A. And obviously traditional forecasting techniques, just trend analysis, a plain scenario, what if it increased by 20% or decreased by 10, traditional methods that we used to use for many years, and very heavy reliance on IT. Those projects for FP&A, the successful projects, they are led by finance department. So this is to answer the question very quickly.
Oh, thank you very much, Larysa. In order to be mindful of our time, we're going to close the Q&A session. We will do our best to get back with all of you who ask questions in a timely manner. We may actually work together and maybe write an article to have some of the key questions so we can share that with the whole community. Want to let everyone know we are continuing our global FP&A Trends survey in 2019, so we appreciate everyone's consideration in their participation in that survey. I would like to once again thank Larysa, Matthias, and Asif for their tremendous insights. I'd also like to thank our webinar sponsor, Unit 4. We appreciate their strong commitment to thought leadership. Just a reminder, you'll have the opportunity to request to be connected with each of our speakers and our sponsor in the post-webinar survey, which will launch immediately following my closing comments, which are, finally, to you, our audience, thank you so much for your valuable time today. We hope to see you in person at an upcoming International FP&A Board Roundtable and on our next Global FP&A webinar. Make the rest of your day or night great, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.